Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the world's most fascinating countries by looking at two really simple things: its size and its location. And trust me, you'll be surprised at what they reveal. But let's start with a bit of a puzzle. Picture this. You're in the far east of India, watching a beautiful sunrise. Meanwhile, a friend of yours, thousands of kilometers away in the west, won't see that same sun for another 2 hours. And yet, here's the kicker: if you both look at your watches, they show the exact same time. How on earth is that possible? Well, the solution isn't some kind of magic trick. It's geography. And by getting a handle on India's unique place on the world map, we're not only going to solve this little mystery, but also unlock a whole lot more about how this massive country actually works.
Okay, so let's tackle that sunrise puzzle head on. The answer isn't just a cool trivia fact. It actually reveals the incredible scale of the country itself.
You see, the whole reason for that time difference comes down to longitude. India is so wide that it stretches across almost 30 degrees of it. Now, the Earth takes about 4 minutes to rotate 1 degree. So you do the math. 30 degrees times 4 minutes per degree, that's 120 minutes. A full 2-hour gap between sunrise in the east and sunset in the west. So can you imagine the chaos? You'd have different train schedules, different office hours. It would be a mess. So a clever solution was needed. And that's where this comes in: the standard meridian. Planners basically drew a line of longitude, 82 degrees 30 minutes east, right down the middle of the country, and just declared, okay, the local time on this line is now the official time for everyone.
And just like that, puzzle solved. It's a really practical fix for a huge geographical problem. It makes sure that even though there are two different sunrises, the entire nation runs on one single unified clock.
Okay, so we've seen how a standard time solves a problem created by India's incredible width. But what about its length, its north to south spread? To get that, we need to zoom out and see exactly where India sits on the globe. So when you look at the world map, a couple of things really pop out. First, India is entirely in the northern hemisphere. But the really crucial detail here is the Tropic of Cancer. You can see how this line slices right through the country, almost perfectly dividing it into two halves. And as we're about to see, that dividing line has a huge impact on daily life. And this brings us to another interesting question. We standardized away the effect of longitude on time, but you can't really standardize latitude's effect on daylight. So why is it that if you're in the south, the length of the day and night feels pretty much the same all year, but up in the north, it changes dramatically with the seasons? Well, the answer is pretty straightforward. The closer you get to the equator, the more consistent your daylight hours are. So India's southern tip, being closer to the equator, has days and nights that are roughly the same length all year round. But as you travel north, away from the equator, that seasonal difference becomes way more extreme. It's a perfect example of how geography isn't just lines on a map. It directly shapes how you live your life. Right, we've talked about the country's east to west and north to south spread. But what about its total size? Let's take a moment to really appreciate the sheer scale we're dealing with here. The total landmass of India is a staggering 3.28 million square kilometers. Honestly, that number is so big, it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around it. So, to really get what it means, we have to put it into a global context. And here's where it gets really interesting. That enormous landmass actually makes up just 2.4% of the world's total land area. Think about that. It's a relatively small slice of the global pie, but it's home to a massive portion of humanity. So where does that put India on the world stage? Well, it is officially the 7th largest country by area, sitting right there after Australia. The main takeaway here is simple. We're talking about a country on a truly continental scale. And a country that big? Well, you'd expect some seriously long borders. And you'd be right. India has a land boundary stretching about 15,200 kilometers. And when you factor in all its island territories, its coastline runs for over 7,500 kilometers. Just massive numbers. So, we've established that India is
huge, but it's the country's location that makes it so strategically important. It's not just about where it is, but what that position actually lets it do on the world stage. Just look at a map of Asia. India's position is so clear. It juts south from the main continent, sitting perfectly at the crossroads between East Asia, West Asia, Europe, and Africa. This gives it the central, commanding position over some of the most important ocean trade routes on the planet. In fact, its position is so dominant that our source material puts it this way. No other country has a coastline as long on the Indian Ocean, and its presence is so powerful that it's the only ocean in the world named after a country. That one fact alone tells you everything you need to know about its geographic importance. And this already strategic spot got a massive upgrade in 1869. The opening of the Suez Canal was an absolute game changer. Suddenly, the journey to Europe was shorter by 7,000 kilometers. This instantly turned India into an even more critical hub on the global highway of trade and commerce. All right, let's bring this all together for a final look at India, not just as a giant piece of land, but as a nation among neighbors, one that's been shaped by its geography for thousands of years. India sits right in the middle of a very busy neighborhood. It shares land borders with 7 different countries to its north, west, and east. And then, across the sea to the south, you've got its island neighbors, Sri Lanka and the Maldives. It's deeply woven into the fabric of South Asia. And it's so important to remember that these connections are ancient. We're talking centuries before major sea travel became a thing. The mountain passes in the north were like highways for travelers, traders, and the exchange of everything from spices to philosophies. So, what does this all boil down to? It means that India's size and its location aren't just abstract facts you learn in school. They have directly shaped its history, its culture, its economy, even the way its people experience a single day. The geography is literally the stage on which its entire national story has played out. Which, of course, leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've seen how this ancient land's position has defined its past. So the big question now is, in a world of climate change, new trade alliances, and shifting global power, how will India's timeless geography shape its future? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.